Hello, my dear community, astrological community. Welcome to my channel. If this is your first time, and welcome back if you are coming back. Sat Sangat Astrology here, and once more talking about the USA Pluto return. This time it's about the real Pluto return because the natal USA Pluto return is retrograde. And so far, Pluto has touched that degree of 27:33 minutes in a direct motion. However, in the month of July, Pluto will be at that degree in retrograde, and that will be the real Pluto return for the USA, and you will see why. And that is happening, as I said, July 12, 2022, just a few days after the celebration of the American independence, right? So it is important to consider this detail and also to read the chart for that specific day. It doesn't mean that something will happen exactly on that day, even though that could be. However, the Pluto return, especially for a country, is a process that lasts and may last for years, right? Several years as Pluto approaches within 3 degrees orb, the exact degree of the natal position or placement. Although some astrologers consider a wider orb up to 15 degrees, like Richard Tarnas in his Cosmos and Psyche book, he states that the process lasts wide, very wide orb to this process, especially for a planet that is slow motion and is so far away and is so powerful in its movement. So I titled this video, "Do As I Say, Not As I Do," because of the many incongruences and contradictions that this USA country has in its since the Constitution and throughout its history, right? One thing is written, another thing is living, and it's there is plenty of contradictions. It's similar to an individual, to a person, right? We are full of contradictions, and it's not different for a country. So we will explore some of those. And I would appreciate if you love the content that I share with you. I would appreciate if you follow me on my social media. And I especially encourage you to visit my blog, Sat Sangat Astrology, blogspot.com. Because I write very often there. I am also on Facebook and of course on YouTube, and MeWe and Tumblr, much less in Instagram because of the constraints the social media has. But nevertheless, I will immediately share with you the chart for this event, punctual event. And we will talk about what is the meaning of the transits and the implications that we might have. Pay attention as well to the lunar eclipse that is happening in just 1 week or so, in mid-May in Scorpio. It's a lunar eclipse, and is in the 12th house, natal 12th house of the USA, which is the house, by the way, associated with it's the house associated with secrets, with things that are in out of sight, right? And also is the house that for a country rules the underground movements, secret societies, and occult groups. It's also the house in a country where the nation finds the secret enemies, either at home or abroad. And this is according to Halder. This I'm reading from Deborah Halding book on the houses. It also talks about spies for a country, of course, or against the country, prison systems, and people who are banished or imprisoned. And what else? Okay, so in general, the 12th house is a house where things are not visible to the eye. However, if we think about the lunar eclipse that we will have in a few days, it's the sun eclipsing the moon, meaning that the moon, which is the psychic part of the consciousness, it is the intuitive part, it is the emotional part of the being. It is eclipsed, it is covered by the consciousness represented by the sun, which means that the sunlight is, let's say, it's preponderant, is more bright because the moon, or the unconscious part of the being or the soul, is covered, is obscured, is blurred, if you like, by the bright sign of the sun. So here we have the sun shedding light on that 12th house of, as I said, hidden enemies and underground movements. So I think this eclipse will be very significant, considering that the moon cycle started in Taurus, which is the house of the 6th house, right? And it is the house of things that are out of balance, like conflicts and wars, right? Because why? Because it's the 12th house before the 12th house of the 7th house, right? If we consider the 7th house as the first house, then the 6th house is the 12th to the 7th, and it represents the dissolution of alliances, of partnerships, the conflicts that intervene in the partnerships and alliances. And in my view, astrological view and political view of the world context at this time, I think that the United States has conflicts and is at war, not only with the Eastern hemisphere of the world, represented in this case by Russia, but also with its alliances with its own partners, right? They don't see eye to eye completely on this subject. And those would be European countries, the European Union, and such that are supposed to be partners to the United States. However, there is not a complete agreement on the subjects that are on the table at the moment. So as you see, this moon cycle of the eclipses started in Taurus, right, at 10 degrees so Taurus, and it culminates in the 12th house of the hidden enemies. So I think it's very significant, and it's probably very related to the Pluto return in retrograde motion in the month of July. Why? Because Pluto not only is a very important actor and factor in the lunar eclipse, but it also is a ruler of the lunar eclipse, which is in Scorpio, ruled by Pluto. So I think it's a very dynamic eclipse. It will be very well associated with this Pluto return in retrograde motion, and it will be very significant. So considering that the country is in some way at war, even though indirectly or subreptitiously, but it is, the country is at war, is a fact. So other interesting factor here is that we have Pluto, this Pluto return in opposition to Ceres in the chart, in the transit chart. And Ceres in Cancer talks about the need for being nurtured in order to feel safe, right? Ceres is the goddess of agriculture, of cereal, and we already know the problem, the agricultural problem originated because of the war, since Ukraine and Russia are important producers of wheat and other cereals, right? And how they share that those resources with other countries of the world. So we see here that this Pluto return will have a specific effect in opposition, right, to the safety that we need when it comes to being nourished and having enough food to survive and provide shelter in that case. So I think it's a very it's a sign of problems, right, for the people. And Cancer ruled by the moon, and the natal moon in the USA chart is being transited by Saturn. So, and it's not exact because Saturn will turn retrograde at 25 degrees. So Saturn is not yet exact transiting over the moon, but if you are old enough to have had experienced in your personal life the transit of Saturn over your moon, you may understand what I will explain immediately. Saturn, and it's already 3 degrees, approximately 3 degrees orb of the transit over the moon, the natal moon. And Saturn has the power of drying out things, blocking, restraining, restricting, separating, limiting, and drying out in general, right? I remember since I had the transit of Saturn over my moon, I am drinking liquids and water like crazy. I mean, it's the people represented by the moon will be thirsty. Thirsty is the third house, right? Thirsty of information, of learning the truth, and it's in Aquarius, the sign of social lives, the sign of communication. So here Saturn, what is doing is restraining anything that has to do with communication, broadcasting, the press, information, data, correct data. So Saturn has this power to limit and restrict and separate the people from the information, the truth of the matter. So be alert on that more next year when Saturn actually conjoins the moon next year. I don't have the date here, but it's around March or April, approximately. It will be exact on the moon. So those are the themes that we can expect. And of course, Saturn and Pluto are semi-sextile, so it's like they don't see each other, but at the same time, in a way, they are working together. And why? Because Saturn rules Capricorn, and so Saturn will be the ruler of Pluto in this case. So even though, as I said, they don't see each other because of the longitude, that they are separated, but the rulership is effective. So other things that I observed here is the moon on this chart at 27 is also semi-sextile. Semi-sextile Pluto and sextile Saturn, which will form a yod with Ceres. So you see, Ceres has a prominence here. This search for safety, for nourishment, for the security of having an identity, right? A national identity as well. So we have this moon opposite Venus, right? And if you consider the rulership of these two bodies, we have the moon is the ruler of the 8th house and the sun, and Venus is the ruler of the country's midheaven at 1 degree Libra, and it's also the ruler of the 6th house, the house of conflict. So here we have an opposition between the midheaven represented by the higher authority, in this case the president or the presidency, and in this house of conflict, right? So we have something is going on with the people, the country, and there could be foreigners because also the moon is in Sagittarius. So it could be foreigners that are undermining this presidency and through conflict. But not only that, this moon is opposing the natal Mars, which is also the ruler of the 5th house and the ruler of the 12th house. So see these, the people, the public, right, and the public opinion, right, it is also opposing what would be the hidden enemies, or whatever is going on underground, right? And the 5th house, and I'm going to read also about the 5th house. Let me find the thing that I want, and I will read what does the 5th house represent in for a country. And the 5th house is associated with diplomats and diplomatic negotiations, ambassadors, and of course, all public places of enjoyment, like recreations, parks, and publicly owned state buildings, national galleries, the educational system as well. So those places could be affected, as I said. Let me see. Those places are affected as well, because of this opposition of the moon and Mars. So these people or public opinions, it could be related to other cultures, to foreigners, to even religious ideals, right? But talking about morality and ethical things, we have seen so far that this Pluto return is so much associated with the Moors and the so-called or ideals of the country and values of the country, cultural values of the country, because it's 2nd house after all, right? And we have seen the review of the Constitution, right, in many items like racism, discrimination of all kinds, white supremacy, and also related to the title, right, of my video, do as I say, not as I do. The United States has acquired leadership over the whole world in a way that it has assumed the role of policing, right, and telling other countries what they can do, what they cannot do, what is correct, what is not correct, where the resources should go, where they should not go, who could be elected, who could not be elected, and things like that. So it has been doing that in a Pluto way, in a Plutonic way. So by surreptitious actions, hidden deals, and even assassination of political leaders in certain cases, like Honduras, Chile in the 70s, and in other cases. Well, if you are not informed, you may study more history and you'll find out. So, so that's why I'm saying that those values, right, do as I say, not as I do, right? Like, don't preaching that the human rights, for example, and preaching against slavery, but nonetheless going to China to outsource industries because the labor is so cheap, and people can be enslaved without any consequences, right? So, and then not only in China, but India and other places of the world where industries, American industries, had gone and placed themselves in order to exploit resources and exploit labor power. So, on the one hand, the country, or mainly the government, has this speech, this discourse, telling we defend the human rights and we defend democracy, etc., etc., and all the while doing and implementing things that are completely opposite to what they are saying or what they are writing in either the Constitution or legislation or whatever. So we see that this Pluto return, I think it will be very intense, especially because it is retrograde, and retrograde Pluto is 10 more times more powerful than the direct motion. It will intensify the grinding on those values, the grinding of the consciousness, and having the country face that reality of values that so questioning the values. Do we really believe in democracy? Do we really defend democracy in other countries, or are we just defending our monetary and material interests from the resources that the other countries have? Or do we really believe in human rights? Do we really defend human rights, like the right to abortion, the right to be Black, the right to be yellow or brown or red? Do we really believe that every person on the world has the same inherited value and rights? Do we really treat every person the same way and give them the same opportunities? So that's human rights. Does the country subscribes to, in fact and in action, to those values? Or is it that we are still in the 1776 year, where the president had slaves and they were all slave owners, and where even it's written in the Constitution that a Black person was just a percentage of human being. So those are the things that are coming out for the country to explore, to review, to revise, and come acquainted to what is the reality. So I think it would be very significant. At the same time, during this process, we have Neptune that have been transiting opposite to the natal Neptune. And that is very significant because of the representation of this confusion, this chaotic situation that is created by this revision of value. So I think this Pluto, the Neptune opposition to the natal Neptune in the USA chart is very, very significant in that way, because we are not seeing clear. We are, and it's in the fourth house of the people, the most intimate and the most basic part of the nation, right? And I can read. Well, I'm gonna leave it at that. But the fourth house represents also the land, the territory. It represents the possessions, the base, the foundation of the country. So it is interesting to see Neptune confusing that in that regard. So I think that would be enough just to let you know that next year, the country will also have the Chiron return. It will be between July and August 2023. And this is significant as well. Chiron takes 51 years to turn around the clock, right? The zodiac clock. And when Chiron gets to 20 degrees, the country will have the Chiron return. And it's in the fifth house. Again, we will see issues of deficiencies and vulnerabilities in the educational system, in recreational activities, places of enjoyment, and the joy of the country, how the country's population enjoys itself. Can the country have happiness? Well, apparently since birth, Chiron was there since birth, and there is always this this bitter taste of enjoyment. So we will see what's coming up. I will certainly study that subject because I am very fond of Chiron. So you will see me next year between July and August talking about this Chiron return. And it's very significant for an individual as well as a country. And I think that's all I wanted to share with you in a short video. So I hope you enjoyed the presentation. Let me go back to okay, so let me go back to this where I would like you to contact me in case you would like an extensive reading or interpretation of your chart. If you have questions as well, I would appreciate if you write in the comments. Please subscribe to my channel, that helps me a lot. And but I am looking forward to hearing your opinions. What you think about this USA Pluto return and how you are experiencing this USA Pluto return. So thank you so much for watching and accompanying me in this channel. And please subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Bye.